My name is Ries. I'm the author of Lean Startup. For whatever reason, I've been lucky enough to get to choose what I work on. So I try really hard to do work that I find meaningful, that I think reflects my values, that has a positive impact in the world. I mean, I'm very blessed to have a very supportive family and a very rewarding personal life. So that helps keep me grounded. And very happy to be here. We're here at Lean Startup Week 2016, so it's an honor to be speaking to you. I learned a lot from that experience. I remember what I learned the most. So I had the failure, and it was very painful. And then a few months later, I was interviewing for jobs. And in one of the interviews, I was telling the story of how we had failed. And the interviewer asked me, well, at the level of strategy, what would you have done differently knowing what you know now? And I started to say, oh, well, we would have built a different product, and I would have hired this person. No, I started to tell him that. He's like, well, none of those are a strategy. There's a body of knowledge and a kind of bigger picture that I don't have any understanding of, that in order to be successful at this, I really need to acquire. So that was a really big lesson, was like, I need to learn from professionals and figure out what does it mean to do a startup and how does entrepreneurship really work, and viewed my need as a self-improvement, self-development exercise, not just, oh, I didn't have the right idea, I wasn't in the right place at the right time, all those kind of lazy excuses people give for why they weren't successful. His most famous lesson by far is to get out of the building. Whenever I'm in doubt about what to do in anything, for years people would come to me, after I became a little bit more famous as Lean Startup, people would come to me for advice about all kinds of crazy stuff that a lot of times it was software, something I knew about, but some people asked me about some crazy thing I knew nothing about, and I was like, well, no matter what the situation is, if anyone ever asks you for advice about anything, you can always tell them to get out of the building and just say, well, how many customers have you talked to? What do they think? And it's amazing to me how many people in how many domains forget that very simple idea. I think it's justifiably his most famous advice, because it's really very generally useful. And all I wanted to do really was, I was like, where's Cupertino? I didn't know. I was like, Cupertino is like a magic place. I want to see. Show me HP. Show me Yahoo. I was about to say show me Google, but not then. No, this is show me these famous companies and places that I had always read about. But it was funny. Like, so I saw the building and the logo. At the time, I was satisfied. I'm here. I've arrived. But of course, the building and the logo and the places, that's not Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is the network and the connections and the people. And it took me a long time, as an apprentice to people, and it took me a long time to penetrate those networks and learn about it. Now, I think there are ways to accelerate that process that I never really had. Not only didn't have access to, but didn't even understand. You think about something like Y Combinator. Becoming a Y Combinator founder is a way to become a Silicon Valley insider, in 10 weeks instead of 10 years. That's what is accelerated in an accelerator. So I think the situation is really different now than it was then, and the network is in a lot of ways more open and just frankly larger and more diverse than it was then. Build relationships with people who are in the know, but don't chase celebrity, and don't let anybody lord their connections over you. This is a mistake I made often. Mentors and advisors will be like, I know everything, and you do what I say, and if you do a good job and jump through these hoops, I'll make these other connections with you. What I discovered, a lot of those people are just phonies. They're not nearly as well connected as they think they are, and they're a little bit mean-spirited in holding back their connections. The truth is, the most famous, the most wealthy, and the most powerful people I've met in Silicon Valley are very eager to pay it forward and rarely demand anything in return. They view building the network itself as intrinsically valuable to them. That's actually the clue that they think of themselves as at the top. People who think of themselves as the best of the best, they don't need proprietary special treatment. They trust that if the network grows, they grow. You think about the best venture capitalists that are like that. So I would look for those open-hearted, open-minded mentors and try to build those relationships and connections. There's many venues in Silicon Valley to do that. My only advice really is treat investors like a customer and try to understand what they want on how to build a product that they want, where the product is not just your technology or your product that you sell to customers, it's the story of why someone would want to invest in you and your thing. And if you ever have the opportunity as an entrepreneur to watch other entrepreneurs pitch their ideas, to sit in, to ask your friends who are entrepreneurs to let you give them feedback on their pitches. As soon as you start to see a few venture pitches, you start to realize that most entrepreneurs are so inside their thing, they have no clue how to pitch their idea to anybody. Through a very funny coincidence, a friend of mine recently sent to me a copy of the very first business plan I ever wrote. And I can't even read it. It's just so embarrassing. It's so bad. It's so clueless. And I just think, at the time I thought it was genius. And you don't realize how much your own idea sounds nuts until you see it through somebody else's eyes. And being good, in order to raise money, you have to learn how to see your idea the way an investor sees it, and that's challenging. I'll give the same advice I give everybody, which is treat whatever you're doing as an experiment. So you're raising money, why? You're not raising money, why? You're building a product, why? You're doing a marketing campaign, why? Ask that question and say, what am I trying to accomplish? And then if I view that as an experiment, that's a hypothesis. I'm building this product because customers will want to buy it. Is there a way to find out if customers would like to buy it without building it? And oftentimes, by doing things in the reverse order, we can discover things that we didn't know before. And I think most entrepreneurs of bootstrap, venture-backed, family, garage, corporate, most entrepreneurs get so convinced that their idea is brilliant, they forget to do that simple experimental validation, and it steers them wrong. So, I always come back to that. I think that when our descendants look back on this time, the thing that will strike them as strangest of all, stranger than that we let human beings drive cars, which is absurd, stranger than that we, let anyone who wants to buy a gun and as much ammunition as they want, stranger than that we thought it was a really good idea to take all the carbon out of the ground and stuff it into the atmosphere for no reason. Stranger than all those ideas put together will be the idea that we thought it was perfectly okay for most people on the planet to spend most of their waking hours doing a job that for them held no meaning and it created no value. So like unmeaningful work, our descendants will find impossible to understand. In the same way that we have a hard time understanding, like you talk to kids now and try to explain to them why we use landline phones. Why wouldn't you just use a mobile phone? It's just better. Why would you want a thing like to plug into the wall and only does one thing and you can't do Snapchat? I don't understand. Why would you want that? Like, of course, the reason we did that is we couldn't think of anything better to do than that. That's the best we had. And why did people use a horse and buggy to get around? Why did they just drive a car? It's like, because there were no cars. Like, fundamentally, our descendants will look at us and be like, why would you allow billions of people to waste their lives in uncreative, non-meaningful, like total waste of time jobs when the world so desperately needs their creativity and talent to be solving important problems? And we're just starting to learn how to do that, and the next generation of employees are just starting to be more confident in demanding that. I think that's the harbinger of the beginning of a major trend that will ultimately take over all work everywhere. I am working on a new book, which I'm tentatively calling The Startup Way, which will come out next year, knock on wood. Mm-hmm. And the thesis is trying to understand when people say they want their startup to maintain its startup character and DNA as it scales. What does that mean? And what do you need to do to make that happen? And similarly, when established enterprises say they want to inject startup DNA back into their organization, what does that look like? What do you have to do from an accountability, process, culture, people standpoint to make that happen? So that's where my head is, trying to understand, figure that out.